Welcome to it, Sunday Live with the Average Joe Sports Show. Elijah Herbel, Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp rocking with you here on a Sunday morning. Schmitty, if you see a lost German Shepherd in South Lincoln, email us, the Average Joe Sports Show at gmail.com. Schmitty is out looking for a lost dog on a Sunday morning. So well wishes to the Schmidt household as they look for Gertie. Just making a run. But again, that is the reiteration. If you're in South Lincoln and you see a German Shepherd on the run, give Schmitty a call.
Yep.
Tag him on Twitter, tag him on Facebook, something along those lines.
Or let the show know.
Yeah, I'll let the show know. Gentlemen, good to see you on a Sunday morning. Big day of college football yesterday. I will tell you, Gary, I spent my afternoon in downtown Omaha, and road construction in Lincoln has nothing on road construction in Omaha right now. Brutal planning, brutal execution, just horrific stuff in downtown Omaha.
Whoa. Well, we have a streetcar coming in a couple of years, Elijah. It's going to revitalize all of Omaha. It's also going to kill some businesses and some great entertainment areas in the city. But you know what? In 2028, we're going to have the streetcar, and it's going to be amazing. Yes. No, downtown construction in Omaha sucks.
Yeah,
it is a hindrance. You can't even walk, and they got streets blocked off by the day. It's just it's been a mess that is a very much to people that live here. It's a problem. There's some businesses that have closed because of you can't get to their business, like in Blackstone and Midtown. So sorry you had to endure that.
Yeah, I had no idea until I made it down there. Oh boy, that was.
I made the trek
2028.
I made the trek to do the Creighton Iowa State game, and you could see all these cars that are just driving slowly around these road closed signs. And then you get down to the backside of CHI Center where you're supposed to go park, and it just says flat out road closed. And you think, okay, if I just continue going, I'm going to end up perhaps in the Missouri River with a lot of other floating cars. But fortunately, the construction guys were like, yeah, come on in. But there was a lot of trepidation around downtown Omaha on Friday. Nice job. 'Tis the season.
Well, gentlemen, it is Northwestern week, and based on what I saw yesterday, it's not a good week to play Northwestern. That team is hot. They're confident. They're playing good football. And I'm seeing Nebraska, I think, is a 7.5 point favorite. And that feels like a lot of points on a Sunday morning. Is that just me? Is that just that Northwestern team? They have some confidence going.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big thing. I think that this whole week is about Nebraska. I don't think it's about who they play. I think it's about Nebraska and how they respond and, what they're, I think Matt Rule has got a 5-game Husker Nation vibe check. The next 5 games are going to tell you a lot because I mean, Friday night was the most disappointing loss that he has had as a head coach here, and that trumps the UCLA game from last year. But the reaction yesterday, people in a span of 1 week went to this program is in a lot of trouble. I think before I overreact to Minnesota, I mean, there's some things that we all reacted at yesterday that are legit, that have been legit. That's the scary thing is things halfway through the season are still an issue and they just get magnified when you play teams that take advantage of them. I think how they respond to Northwestern, how they play, how guys perform, how the week goes is going to be huge. But he's got, there's 5 games to let everybody know that they just have a Minnesota problem. They just have PJ Fleck gets his team ready to play. And you know what? Maybe Nebraska is not as mature as we thought, guys, because if I go back and watch part of that game and how unprepared Nebraska was, Nebraska might have been overconfident. They might have been smelling themselves too much. And maybe losing a game like that, as much angst as it's going to bring this weekend and maybe change that it'll bring, maybe it'll turn out to be a good thing for Nebraska. I hope so.
Well, you're going to hear we still have the youngest team in the Big Ten, and that's not going to change. But there was the talk about, you got the game in Maryland, and then you have a short week to get ready for another road game at Minnesota. Okay, I think that's an excuse that Nebraska doesn't travel by buses and trains anymore. So I don't think that really works. Your chef could have gotten there on Monday and Tuesday and prepared all of the juice boxes and mac and cheeses and all that in plenty of time, and you're staying at the best places. So I don't buy into that. The problem for Nebraska is that it's a long week after a Friday night game and a performance like that. So yesterday, Friday night, even though the game was a night game, Friday night seemed like a day. And then the way everything marinated throughout the college football Saturday, I'm looking at Twitter and watching Husker fans back and forth all day yesterday. Wild games, entertaining games are going on. And yesterday was a long day of stewing in what happened on Friday night. There will be a lot of agitation waiting for that team on Saturday, that if they don't come out and play well early, halftime could be bad. They were worried about fans booing the halftime, I shouldn't say worried. They noticed that fans were booing the halftime of the Michigan game or the Michigan State game. If they don't play well in the first half on Saturday against Northwestern, it's really going to be a long afternoon, no matter what Nebraska does.
And the concern to me is you have a Northwestern team that wants to run the hell out of the football. That's what they have. Preston Stone, their quarterback, he's nothing special. But you look at across their games against Power 4 opposition, and I'm throwing Oregon to the side. You're talking 42 rushes for 199 yards against UCLA, 42 rushes for 119 yards against Penn State, 50 rushes yesterday against Purdue for 232 yards. Nebraska's got to get that buttoned up. Based on what I've seen this year, that's where the defense is susceptible. And John Butler said it himself last week. If he was any offensive coordinator in the Big Ten and you have Nebraska on the schedule, the first thing you're doing is testing that run defense. Purdue's going to run it early and often. Now, they don't have as much of a threat through the air as I think a team in Minnesota does or Maryland does. Like, they're going to be pretty one-dimensional offensively, but they run the hell out of that football, and they have good success doing it.
Hey, let's be honest. I actually said this why I'm enjoying this season, and I'm still enjoying this season, is that Nebraska could win every game on the schedule. They could lose every game on the schedule. I think this is a big week from the also standpoint of, I think if you go back to Friday night, it'd be easy to point fingers. Offensive line, quarterback, running back, offensive line coach, head coach, defensive coordinator. Those kind of losses, it's easy to have it beat you twice because you could point fingers. So that's why this week is pretty important for Nebraska football. Not only doing the right thing, saying the right thing, and whose program is it? Is it the older guys' program? Is it the head coach's program? Is it the Raiola's program? It's Nebraska's program. And this is why when Saturday tees up again, if we ever find out kick time for that game, they need to start quick and they need to finish fast. And in between, they need to look better than they've looked all season long, or the questions start to mount. Because I think there's questions that are still there that have been there from day one about offensive line, defensive line, and those haven't been resolved. But now Friday night added more questions, especially on the offense and the scheme. Is it the right scheme? And where is Key? Where is Barney? All of those kind of things come to a head when you're 7 games into the season, but yet you're 5-2, and you're like, well, I think we should be better than 5-2.
Nebraska's most complete game of the year was Cincinnati. And I don't count Akron and Houston Christian. Those are sparring partners. But they came out of the gate pretty well against Cincinnati, and there's been regression for whatever reason. Now, it wasn't complete 60 minutes of football against Cincinnati because it took a great play at the end, and Cincinnati had some momentum at the end of the fourth quarter and almost pulled out the victory. But what improvement has there been in this football team from the night in Kansas City? Emmett Johnson's a proven running back, but the offensive line hasn't improved, and now it's a big question mark because of the injuries, likely season-ending injury to Rocco Spindler. You've got Pritchett, who's been flighty, shall we say. Canucks playing a position I don't know if he's ever played before. Gatula's confidence is probably a little shaky at this point. So the offensive line, the defensive line hasn't proven to show a lot of improvement in finding those players who are going to replace Robinson and Hutmacher. Not that you were going to find, peer replacements right across the board. You didn't expect that. But the secondary is good, but it was good at the beginning. So where's the improvement been from that win over Cincinnati?
Yeah, this is it's a fair question of Matt Rule at Nebraska is what happens first half compared to second half of the season. Because in the back end, he's 3-10. Get off to a good start. What happens when you get to those 5 wins and you have a chance to get to 6? So you got 5 games to tell people and show people that all that goodwill that you built up is still there and they can expand on it. I think a bigger question, Bill, taking the development part, is how many guys that are new to the program or are originally recruited to the program are developing, compared to guys that got here and they dip their toe in water somewhere else. I think there's like Lindenmeyer. Lindenmeyer has gotten better. And I'm not talking in season. I'm talking since he got here, Justin Evans, so on and so forth. But, that's a scary thought to have, that Nebraska might be the same team they were in Kansas City. I think they're a little bit better, but they haven't taken that big jump yet. They haven't taken the jump that is needed to go from a good team to a really good team. And guys, I keep going back. I think Minnesota did Nebraska a favor. It sucks. They're 5-2, and that's an embarrassing loss, and you were unprepared, and you gave up more sacks than you scored points. UCLA did Nebraska a favor last year. They exposed some things. Rule responded, either in season or the end of season. Minnesota reminded Nebraska that Nebraska and Rule might have a Minnesota problem, that how do you respond? Because you can't just brush it off as like, man, short week. You got to go, if you want to win in the Big Ten, you've got to build in the Big Ten. And that's what Minnesota has done. And you have access and resources to better players to build in the Big Ten. They just know how to play in the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm. Would agree.
And now I look, coming back to Northwestern this week, it feels like a fan base that was close to being, like, in terms of levels of fandom, back to what it was in the Pliny years, where you actually have belief, you have confidence, you have excitement coming through the week for a Husker game. It feels like the juice has been left out of the fan base to me right now. And I question what Memorial Stadium looks like on Saturday against a team in Northwestern that no, they're not going to get anyone's attention, but they're very quietly, I mean, if you're paying attention, not quietly, but quietly to the average fan, winners of 4 straight, a game away from bowl eligibility, which who would have picked that for Northwestern coming into the season? I guess, I mean, we're into the stretch of the season now where it's, we talked so much in the offseason about, man, how easy the schedule is for you. It sets up really well. Well, there's some teams on there that are surprising you now. Northwestern, better than a lot of people expected. UCLA, what a turnaround they've had. After just a horrific start to the season, they seem to be a problem right now. Iowa has an offense. They go and beat Penn State yesterday, which I'm not sure that was an upset. I think they were favored, but putting up 25 points doing it, they're competent right now. USC, I don't know what to make of them right now. They played tough. The offense is good. Defense is susceptible.
Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, Lincoln Riley. And then the game that we thought was going to be the toughest of the year, Penn State, might be the easiest remaining game on your schedule, because I don't know what the want to or the care level is for that Penn State team. And they have a murderer's row coming up.
See, that's why, embrace this ride, because Nebraska could win them all and they could lose them all. I think Saturday. So, you every time you have something like Minnesota happens, you have the balance of all of us that have been around for the last 10 to 15 years against people that have only been here for 3. Okay. Where you go, hey, winning is hard. We didn't win. We weren't prepared. That's on us. We'll get better. Compared to, we've seen that song and dance again, and PJ Fleck just beat Nebraska. So you have those two things that butt heads. I still think people will show up on Saturday because they're curious. They're curious how Nebraska responds, not kicking the season, by the wayside. Want to see how Nebraska responds to what happened against Minnesota. Was it a Minnesota thing, or is this a lingering thing? But there's also, so let me ask you guys this. So the more I think about it, and I haven't watched the entire game, I went and picked and choose of certain series I wanted to watch play. Could we have seen Friday night coming? I know Rule said he didn't, and he used the same line that he used after Indiana. But there are things that Nebraska did the last 2 weeks that they got away with, that when you don't come with, big dick energy, and the other team does, and you still make those same mistakes and you still have those same flaws, they get exposed. Could we have seen Saturday or Friday night coming? When we step back and look at this a couple of days later, of where Minnesota beat Nebraska.
Well, the thing that you see coming is the intense pressure they're always going to put on Raiola. Every team's going to do that, and Nebraska's not adjusted to that. What was it? 6 sacks? Was Michigan 6? And then 5 by Michigan State.
7 Michigan, 5 Michigan State.
So big numbers. Maryland, the strength of their defense was getting to the quarterback, and for the most part, it was a relatively clean game in terms of sacks. But the game plan to attack Nebraska is just bull rush the quarterback for the most part. That's a simplified way of saying it. So you can see that. You can see that all teams are doing is just rush him. And Minnesota, who has manhandled Nebraska for the PJ Fleck era, probably saw that and said, defense's game plan is pretty simplified this week. Just do what we continue to do, what everybody else has done. So to say, did we see that coming? Yeah. But you would think that Nebraska would adjust to it in some way, shape, or form to make their quarterback a little more, I don't want to say he's not going to be mobile, but do some things that might give him some time. But the quarterback plays have been the exact same since the Michigan game.
Yeah. I mean, they beat him with fundamentals and technique. I mean, they took their pride. Like, they beat him in simple 101 stuff. The offensive line right now, Nebraska leads the country in the most sacks given up. That's unacceptable. I don't care if it's a combination of the quarterback, running back, offensive line, wide receivers, the scheme, all of that stuff, the position coaches. It's fully unacceptable at a school like Nebraska to be leading the country in sacks that are allowed. And it's a hard conversation, but it might be an easy conversation on to fix that. I don't think you can fix it in season because I don't think Nebraska has the personnel, whether they're wearing a headset or a helmet, to fix it. They have to fix it in the offseason. But if they don't fix it, that tells me everything I need to know. And if people are out there and saying, well, if you got to be careful about your offensive line coach, who his nephew is, I don't give a shit. Okay. Whose program is this? Is it the head coach's program or is it a family's program? Okay. The family doesn't get fired. You get fired. And Rule looked at the UCLA loss last year and said, if I want to get to where I think this program can be, we got to make some changes. Now, he had the ability to make some changes in season, and then he made a change at the end of the season with special teams. I think you have to address this in season, and then I think you need to address it out of the season because Nebraska can't move forward if they can't get the scheme, the quarterback, and the offensive line to align. And if they're not able to do that, this is going to be a regular occurrence, and you're going to need to win and move the ball. You're going to need guys to pull things out of their ass to have success. And I don't know. That's not an offense that I want to live with.
Here's the question. Let's say Rule gets the job at Penn State. Does he take his entire staff with him to Happy Valley? He kept Raiola on staff after Frost was let go. If he was to get the job at Penn State, would he be his offensive line coach there? And I think if the answer is no, then I think that's pretty telling. Read between the lines.
Yeah. And so, I know that it's not all on Donnie. I mean, there's no way in God's green earth that Donovan Raiola teaches Gunnar Gatula to stand up immediately and be flat-footed with an edge rusher or not be cognizant of where the block is to help you or where the rusher is coming from. They're so out of sync, whether it be the line calls, the quarterback changing the play. I mean, I don't know enough internally if they know the why, but you go back and watch the game Friday night, guys. It's not just Minnesota decided to rush 2 and they got home. It's a schematic, just full breakdown of the offense that you're running, the wide receiver routes that you're running. Where's the mesh? Where's the slants? Where's the screens to help out? Where's the cognizant of a quarterback not to back up into pressure or to a quarterback that is more comfortable getting out of the pocket and rolling right, where it seems like that's where he makes plays. I mean, we're in a really ugly spot right now, and you're going to be without a guard who kind of has held his own in Spindler. He's going to be out for a while. Ooh, God bless Emmett. I mean, Emmett, can you wear a Mears cape for another 5 games?
I mean, whenever I look at the pass protection, it's a culmination of factors, as you said, where technique isn't great. There's been poor communication. The one play that stands out is the one where Gunnar didn't know, I don't think, that he had Emmett Johnson helping him out, and he goes in the inside threat, leaves the defensive end, and Emmett also goes for the inside threat. I don't think he had any idea that Emmett was helping him out in protection there. So he goes inside, which is what you're coached to do. You take the inside threat. That's the guy that can get to the quarterback fastest. But he did that because I don't think he knew Emmett Johnson was coming in to help on that blitzer up the middle. So he steps inside. I mean, that's a communication breakdown. You have issues where the offensive line doesn't know where Dylan's going to be, which the really good offensive lines like that protect their quarterbacks, they know where their quarterback is going to be at any given time based on what the pass rush is doing. They have no idea where Dylan's going to be. Dylan steps into pressure. I mean, it's a culmination of factors.
Yeah.
Like I think the best way to put it, pressures and hurries, that's primarily an offensive line statistic. And there are moments where, hey, the quarterback sends the protection the wrong way, he gets pressured, and it's the quarterback's fault. But primarily, that's the offensive line's fault whenever there's pressures and hurries. Whenever there's sacks and a high number of them, that's the quarterback's fault. And right now, Nebraska is giving up a whole bunch of pressures and hurries and a whole bunch of sacks. It's not just the offensive line. It's not just Dylan. It's both of them. And I don't know what the solution is besides wholesale changes to how you operate your offense with, as you said, Gary, quick passing, finding Emmett Johnson out of the backfield on screens, like things that can slow down the pass rush and don't force Dylan to stand back there and read a defense. Because I think at this moment in time, every single team on your schedule is going to have the capability. If you try to go 5-step drop and have Dylan go through his entire progressions, he's going to get killed back there.
Yeah, they, like the last 2 weeks, the targets and the receptions for Key and Barney have been minimal. I think the way to help Dylan, first of all, you got to apply some handcuffs. And you say, you know what? We're not syncing up with our wide receivers on the deep ball. There is no respect to the deep ball. There's not a respect when we run these zone counter reads that you're going to keep the football. So we're going to put some handcuffs on you, and we're going to call you a game manager, and that's the best way to succeed until we can grow. But I think they got to get him out of the pocket. When he's on the run, he is pretty dynamic, and I think he can see the field better. And if that's what they got to do, that's what they got to do. Because when he's back in the pocket, like, I don't know if we're into the area of seeing ghosts. He doesn't have the sense around you, and it's not like we're 7 games into his career. We're now 20 games into his career. And maybe he won't get that. And if he can't get that, then you've got to help him with moving the play and moving the pocket and giving him a better look. But man, that's a tough thing to do, guys. I mean, midway through the season, that all of a sudden you're going to have to scale down some of your offense. But if you have to, that's what you got to do, because Nebraska has to be able to move the football on a regular basis and not just have these, oh my God, he made an incredible play. They have to have an offense that looks like, man, they can drive and has an identity, and they have pet plays and they can build on each other and move down the field and not have to rely on an explosive, oh my God, did you see that play he made?
Yeah, I've been saying he's got to move around. That has to be a designed, a few steps to the left, a few steps to the right, not just drop back and scramble around. I'm watching Lindsey the other night, the discipline that he has on his play actions and how precise he would extend the ball out and then roll out one way or the other. Everything designed that way. When Dylan runs, it's drop back and then scramble for his life. I think they 3 or 4 steps one way or the other at least buys some time for somebody and buys time for receivers to perhaps get open and see the field a little bit better. I think that would help. Is there a willingness to do that? I don't know. One question I have about the offensive line, and I'll throw this out there. If Spindler is out, he's been your best guard. Your other best guard might be your center, who has shown versatility his last couple of years as playing center and guard. Do you by chance say, okay, we got Canuck, a tackle, playing guard for, I think maybe first time. I'm not sure what his guard resume is, but do you move Evans? Do you dare move Evans and slot Sledge in there? Because he's been, I think, your center in waiting. Is that the answer? Because Evans has been very versatile and been very serviceable, or not serviceable. He's been very good at both guard and center.
It's a great question.
That's you know what? That is a great question. Sam Sledge hasn't played a lot this year.
I know.
There is the relationship between Evans and Raiola, but you are right, Justin. And he's come a long way, and he can play guard. I almost think, guys, and you can't do this because you're going to need him as an extra blocker. I mean, Turner Corcoran actually might be an answer at guard, but I think because of your issues on the tackles, I mean, you might have to keep him in his current role to be an extra blocker or to play the role of a tackle. I don't know. That's a great question. I I know they like Sam Sledge, but man, Sam Sledge hasn't played a lot of football this year. That's the
None of
problem.
those young guys
That's the
have.
problem. They haven't, they've gone a couple of games where all 5 have played 55 or more snaps. And now they've been forced the last couple of weeks because a guy goes down, that Corcoran has to come in late the last 2 drives at Maryland to play for Pritchett. I don't know what they're going to do. It's unfortunate. They don't have a lot of options in the way that they can do to fill that. I don't know. I don't think Knack looked really comfortable.
Nope.
They moved him to guard. I guess they moved him to guard midway through this year. I think he has played guard in the past, maybe not at Nebraska, but it's the problem. I've said this for a while. Nebraska has problems with tackles that should be guards that go and play tackle, and then they go to the next level and they play their right position. But whatever it is, this is going to test the OC and his play calling and his, Q rating around here. It's going to test the quarterback. It's going to test the offensive line coach. Most importantly, it's going to test the head coach, because they can't move forward until they get all of this in the same line, that everybody's on the same page, play after play, that Nebraska could pull off a 14-play, 98-yard, 8.5-minute drive. I mean, do we have any trust that that could happen with this offense?
Well, and one of the things that we don't talk about enough, I think, with Nebraska's struggles offensively is the fact that you don't have another running back besides Emmett. And I said it before, God bless him. He tries hard in pass protection. He is not a pass protecting running back, and he needs to be one because of the struggles of the offensive line. A good pass protecting running back can clean up some issues with offensive line issues and pass protection. Nebraska doesn't have that. Nebraska can't ride the running game like they'd like to in a 16-play, 85-yard drive, as you're talking about.
That would end in a field goal.
Because you don't have another running back you can turn to. You can't hand the ball off 10 straight times to the same guy. And whenever Emmett leaves the field, I don't think you have a running back that you trust in the handoff game. So now you have to go throw the football around. And the defense can key on that. When Emmett's not in the football game, they don't have to worry about a running attack. They can pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. It's more of an issue than I think we're giving it credit for, that Nebraska didn't address the backup running back spot.
Well, okay, so I'll go back to something, and I agree with you, Elijah. And by the way, if you watched Dowdell last night in the Kentucky game,
I was going to go there.
He still leaps way too early. This could be a busy day in college football with places like Gainesville, Madison, Lexington.
Tallahassee.
But the thing about these conversations is, even after Michigan State, after Maryland, which were victories the previous 2 weeks, aren't we having the same conversations? Haven't we been having the same conversations all year? And Nebraska's been playing with a little bit of fire. And so they're 5-2 with an issue that we had on August 1 and August 30th that we have on October 19th. We've just added a couple to it. I don't think we could have ever imagined the tackle play to be so choppy. And I also don't think we could have imagined that tackling has really gone south the last 2 weeks. But everything else, like our worries of offensive line, worries of defensive line, worries of backup running back, those have kind of come to fruition. Are we adding now wide receivers, inability to get open? It's very, very frustrating to be having these conversations 7 games in, when you would think as the season progresses and guys get older and they play a little bit more, that these questions get answered. But that's where we are, and we got 5 games to figure this all out and figure out where this is going and who's going with you.
I go back to that Cincinnati game. I thought Nebraska's tackling in the season opener was really good, as I recall. Now, I'm not going to go back and watch it, but I thought, wow, this team's tackling pretty well. And then you've got the 2 sparring matches, tackling against Michigan. Well, they were just bigger, stronger, faster, and proved it. But yeah, the tackling has gotten progressively worse. On that 71-yard run, so many runs against Maryland and against Michigan or Minnesota. That's really disappointing too, is that that's not been a consistent thing. And I don't know why that is, but it's the most fundamental part of the game is go tackle the guy with the football.
I think they have, Nebraska. When Nebraska has quite a few guys that are really good going north-south, keeping things in front of them. But when you have to, go east to west, sideline to sideline, crossing routes, things like that, and you got to make an open field tackle, that appears where some guys really do struggle. And I said this last week. I was like, okay, Hartzog is out, so Guthrie's going to get to play more. Sia Wright is at a different kind of position. Singleton, who I don't know if his name even got mentioned Friday night. You know, they kind of could use Hartzog being back, because I think it would take some guys that are on a struggle bus off the field for a bit, and then you could put them back in there. But they're in a weird spot. I think they're in a weird spot outside of the guy that's punting and the guy that's kicking field goals right now,
and the guy snapping.
I just, I almost like, it's almost if, and Rule explained his relationship with PJ Fleck, and Nebraska has to figure out, do they have a Iowa-Minnesota problem, or do they just have a problem? Wouldn't you like to call up Fleck yesterday and go, PJ, how do you do it? How do you do it against us? You're 7-1. How do you do it? Because if you want that answer, I advise everybody to listen to his post-game press conference. I think he respects Nebraska. I think he respects Rule a lot more than he respects Frost. But he laid out how they go about beating Nebraska. And it's not all physicality. It is fundamentals. It is technique. He used the word making free throws. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, that's a great statement. They play football 101.
Which is how Nebraska used to beat everybody else for a long, long time. Fundamental football. As we're talking about the offensive line, and I thought about it all day yesterday, and I guess I've been marveling about it for decades. But even more so, how is it that I'm going to get nostalgic? How is it that a simple old kind of country boy from Harvard, Nebraska, who loved his Old Milwaukee or Busch Lights or whatever they were serving at the Brunswick Tavern, was one of the great offensive line coaches in college football over the last 50 years. And his buddy was a slow-talking guy who came from Omaha High School, Omaha West Side. And those guys team up and produced the greatest offensive lines over 25 years. I'm talking about Milt Tinniper and Dan Young. There was nothing complex about their personalities at all. Those were beer-drinking dudes who were happier at a small-town tavern than in the boardrooms, but every year, consistently, the development of younger players, and once in a while, a great while, a Will Shields would come on campus and a freshman started. But the development of offensive lines through the most easygoing Nebraska kind of dudes and what they created for so long, why has it been so complicated, so difficult to replicate that kind of coaching along the offensive line at Nebraska? I'm mystified by that, because you knew Milt. I knew Milt.
Yeah.
Just a simple old country guy, I mean, I love that guy, and his players loved him too, but they developed. Next man up, next man up, next man up. Rarely did they have to hide somebody on the offensive line. If somebody got hurt, the next guy was ready. And now you're getting hurt, and you're going, we thought this would be the deepest offensive line Nebraska's had in a long time, at least 2 deep at every position. And there are guys with semi-tractor trailer trucks parked outside their high schools, and I have no idea where some of these guys are that I thought would be producing and be regulars, and that's not happening.
One of the things that stands out about the other offensive lines I've seen in the Big Ten is it's kind of athleticism. They seem to be smoother movers. Whenever you watch Michigan and you watch Minnesota and the teams that have run the football, especially out in space, they're just smoother with how they operate. I'm not saying Nebraska's it's not that they have slow offensive linemen. It's just they don't look smooth in how they move. Like when you watch Minnesota, one of the things that stood out to me going back and rewatching was how well, again, that offensive line got up to second level. There was so much pressure that was put on your secondary in terms of tackling because your linebackers were getting wiped out by offensive linemen. And that comes at defensive line didn't do a great job keeping them off. But also, whenever that Minnesota offensive line got to second level, they were so smooth keeping up with linebackers and just knocking the hell out of them. And it's harder than it looks to square up a linebacker who is more athletic than you, faster than you, and square him up, knock him out of the play. Minnesota did a great job with their offensive line getting up to second level, and Michigan did the exact same thing to you. I think Maryland's offensive line even was pretty good at getting up to second level and making your secondary go and tackle. When we talk about the tackling issues, one of the things is there was a lot of pressure put onto that Nebraska secondary to go and tackle a running back that is, Darius Taylor. he runs like a Minnesota running back, which is downhill. He's going to turn the legs. He's going to bring the contact to you. Like, it was just impressive to see how that Minnesota offensive line, it's not 4 and 5 stars, it's a lot of 3 stars. Just how well they move in space, get up to the linebackers, and force your secondary to tackle. Just hat on a hat football.
Yeah, I think we're talking about consistency. I mean, there's a couple of plays where the offensive line blocked really, really well Friday night. Quarterback didn't make a play. I mean, he had plenty of time, didn't make a play. It's just it's the consistency, and what is the disconnect? Is it the type of offense they're running? Is it the type of technique they're teaching? Donnie's technique is a little bit different from what we're used to around here. I don't know. It's not just one guy. It's not just 5 guys. I think you kind of have a little bit of an eraser at running back. Remember we talked about Amir. Amir didn't run behind great offensive lines, but Amir was an eraser, and he could do a lot of stuff on his own. I think to a little bit of a lesser extent, we see that with Emmett. We talked last week, man, Emmett almost ran for 200. Does that mean the offensive line had a great day? Well, they played well. They played consistent, but Emmett made a lot of yards out of nothing on his own. Now you go to the quarterback. Does Nebraska have a quarterback that is dynamic and mobile and versatile enough that when the offensive line breaks down, does that mean the whole play breaks down, or can he make a play on his own? Now, periodically he does, and you go, wow, that's a big boy throw, but not enough consistently. And I don't know. I don't want to live in a world where that's your offense. Nebraska's offense was for a while in the first half, Dylan, go make a play, and just, man, it won't be an easy play. Just make a highlight reel play, and we live for another down. Just it's a really, really uncomfortable spot 7 games into the year where you don't know your identity from game to game. You don't know that, hey, if the wind is blowing 100 miles an hour on the road, we don't have to throw it. We're going to be able to run the football, And it's a hodgepodge. It's a hodgepodge, and there's no way that Dana wants to live in that world. But it's scheme, it's quarterback, it's offensive line, it's block. It's everything is tied into one. But you can't let this linger. I mean, you can't wake up on Sunday morning and be number 1 in the nation in allowing sacks. That just is, you just can't. You can't and say everything's okay. And I know they're not. I know they're not saying that, but you have to let people know it's not okay.
Breaking news: the Nebraska home opener or home game against Northwestern is 11 a.m. on FS1. 11 a.m. FS1.
All right.
Yep.
That'll go into Elijah's might be a little sleepy.
You don't have to renew your Peacock subscription just yet.
Well, so, I mean, I think one of the things that happened Friday night is Nebraska was reading the headlines and got ranked, and they saw a number next to their name. And they're like, hey, man, we had a good time out in Maryland. Instead of going, guys, we won the football game, but we did some things that we can't do. And I think if you press some guys, when guys talk this week, I hope these questions are brought up. I hope these questions brought up to Rule tomorrow. At the end of the day, did you overlook Minnesota? You talked all week. Maybe you didn't as a head coach because you talked about what Minnesota's identity is and what they've done to you. But do you think this program, coming off 2 straight wins, people are talking about them, do you think that you were not prepared mentally enough to stand in a ring with Minnesota? Thought that, you know what? We'll get up on Minnesota. The crowd's going to be there. We'll shut them up. We'll have a good Friday night. We'll be back home, and everything's going well with Nebraska football. Just a stark reminder that it's a week-to-week sport.
And one thing I don't think was a factor was the Penn State talk. I think Nebraska's got out-coached. I don't think there was – I just – watching the game, it'd be easy to say that it was an excuse, but just watching the effort on one side of the ball versus the other, and we've been talking about it now for a couple of days, Minnesota just outplayed, outcoached, out everything Nebraska. And to think that, well, Nebraska might lose its coach to Penn State was a factor. I don't believe that at all. Not anymore. I mean, I think as I was watching it the other night, watching it back after the game, the Creighton game, I thought, well, maybe it was. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I just think that Minnesota was better prepared, as they always are against Nebraska, and that's what did him in. So I think the whole Penn State talk is somewhat moot. If he gets that gig, it's going to be because they struck out 4 or 5 times, and I think he's probably the standby on the list. But I don't think that was enough of a distraction to cause what happened Friday night.
It seemed to me that, and it probably comes down to the week of preparation as well, but it just manifested itself on Friday night that Minnesota treated Nebraska like a big game and Nebraska treated Minnesota like another game.
Yep.
And that's the result that happens. Nebraska did not put any extra emphasis on going into a hostile road environment and playing well. It feels like they were just expected to go in there and have a normal run-of-the-mill Big Ten football game where Minnesota came in and said, oh, it's a big one. We got Minnesota. It's a brand. Or we got Nebraska coming in.
Yeah.
That's a brand. They wanted to win that game bad. And you saw the students, they stormed the field for reasons because Nebraska is still a big game to Minnesota. And Nebraska did not treat Minnesota, I think, with the respect that they needed.
That was puzzling. I'm still surprised that they ran on the field, but good on them. That's fine. Whatever, pay whatever fine there is. But I didn't think Minnesota had that in them to do that with a win over Nebraska. But I think if Nebraska beats Minnesota, I don't think Nebraska fans storm the field for it. But I guess it's a rivalry.
I don't know. I mean, it's a big game up there. I don't know that they stormed the field. I think they congregated on the field. That's hey, that's
it was
the
like
least.
It's like a Husker basketball win over Purdue or Creighton or something where they stroll the court.
That's the least of my concern if I'm looking at Nebraska. I'm like, well, if they want to run on the field, great.
I know.
I mean, we got to be ranked. It's just, why does this program now in 3 years of Matt Rule, and again, you have every time you have a game like Friday night, you have the clash of I've only been here for 3 years to the rest of us that have been here for 10 to 15 years and are like, here we go again, is why when you get success, can you not handle it? Nebraska got off to a good start. I mean, I think there's still some good things that they're doing, but there's some things that are still there that have been there, and some weeks you get beat by those, and some weeks you're able to do things that cloud those over. But why does Nebraska, when it's that breakthrough in the last 2 years, now into year 3, why can't you break the glass ceiling? What is limiting you from going from 5-1 to 6-1, exercising some demons? Not to make anybody feel worse this morning, Nebraska probably would have moved up a considerable amount in the polls because of everybody that lost in front of them. Okay, so why, when you get to 5, how come you can't get to 6 and make it 7 and make it 8? What is the thing that is limiting them right now? Is it helmet, headset? Is it between the earlobes? What is it? Because first half, good start. I mean, it's almost like death taxes, and Nebraska is going to have at least 5 wins under Matt Rule going into November. Now they have a chance to get to 6 wins, but why can't you then go from 6 to 7, 7 to 8? What's limiting that jump? Because the stat that is out there that we brought up yesterday, that really is crazy. I don't know. I thought that 9 sacks allowed and only 6 points scored was like, what the hell? And then you look at once you get 5 wins under Matt Rule, Nebraska's 1-10 since. Like once you get to 5, the remaining games, you're 1-10. How does that happen? I mean, that's not easy to do. So how do you get where you can break the glass ceiling? What's the limitation when you have a chance to grab something and then take it to another level? And they may do that, guys. They may turn around on Saturday and boat race Northwestern and have a feel-good party. And we're like, here comes USC. It's November, and 8 wins or 9 wins are still in play. But Friday night helps you bring that trust down. You go, here we go again.
I'm personally super worried about this Northwestern team. They're nothing special, but they will run the hell out of the football. They will continue running it even if it's not working. Those body blows will wear on you, and they're going to rack up yards on the ground. I'm pretty confident in that. I think Nebraska should be able to move the football on them, but Minnesota's not a team that's known for pass rushers. They got after you for 9 sacks. Northwestern's going to get pressure on Dylan. I can almost guarantee that based on what I've seen so far this year. And they got no one on that defensive line that I go, oh yeah, that's a pass rusher, but they'll get pressure on you. It's I don't know. I thought that we had seen Nebraska develop a culture kind of in front of our eyes this year. They went from losing to winning, of a team that was embracing the process. And I feel like that kind of left the building on Friday night against Minnesota. I have doubts about the culture now, and I maybe shouldn't overreact to one game like that, but every single football team in America is going to have its warts, and Nebraska's been able to overcome those. They just did not have a response on Friday night. They didn't have almost like a desire to go overcome some of those warts. It felt like Minnesota was exploiting them, and Nebraska said, well, they have our number tonight. And that's what concerns me moving forward into Northwestern, because it's going to be a same game plan for Northwestern that Minnesota pulled out. How are you going to be able to handle those things in practice and get better whenever you haven't shown yourself to be able to do that this year? Because I think they've through the course of the season said, well, we've gotten wins at the end of the day, so we're okay. It's the first week now where a team's really exploited your warts, and you have to now deal with them through a week of practice. I'll be curious to see how Nebraska responds, because if it's been like anything else or any other game so far this season, there's been no tangible progress in cleaning up some of those issues, or at least covering them up.
Yeah, that's like the week around here is, and that's why it's important to play Northwestern and play well, to say Minnesota was a bad night at the office. Hey, we had a very immature moment. Headsets to helmets. We took care of business against Northwestern. We're back. We're now 6-2, but it'll be a week of, because it won't be a positive week around here. And if you're a player, you're going, whoa, aren't we 5-2? I hope you're not doing that. I hope you're going, well, we're 0-1 until we play again. That'll tell you a little bit about the culture, but yep. I'd like to see somebody get angry. I'd like to see somebody be angry that you're past a performance like that, where you just lay a major egg. Hey, there's winners and losers. You're going to lose, but where you lay an egg, where your pride got sucked out of you, where somebody just lined up and beat you and played football 101, and they didn't scheme you into the ground. They won one-on-one battles. Man, that's the pride thing. That's where I find out about the culture if guys are ticked off about that. Because you could go, hey, man, they got some good coordinators. They put together a hell of a game plan, and we weren't ready for that, and they caught us off guard, and they made a play. That's almost easier to look, right? If Nebraska loses 24-6 and Minnesota played great and they made plays and they schemed you into the ground, then 24-6 and they beat you up.
Well, I think Nebraska has a good culture to play football. But the question is, when you talk about that stat you gave, Gary, with the record, but the first half of the season, 1-10 after 5 wins, is do you have the culture to win in the Big Ten? Right? Because those games you're talking about after 5 wins are Big Ten games. And so you get into conference play, and are you prepared to play the way you're supposed to play in this conference? And apparently not. That you don't have a culture of a winning mentality to play the kind of football that is going to play well and play rugged and play black and blue in October and in November. And that has not been developed. It's Nebraska has a good culture. It's got a great program. It has all the bells, whistles, and toys. It does have the money that Matt Rule talked about at the press conference last week. They're not shy on that. But do you have a culture that when the calendar flips to October, you go, okay, now we have to play a different style of football because we have gone through the steps to get ready for this time of the year. Wisconsin is going through it right now with Luke Fickell. They don't have that Big Ten mentality anymore. That's pretty obvious. They got shut out at home yesterday. I mean, they didn't show up to fight, and you thought maybe they would. I thought Ryan Day may be taking it easy on them. But they've lost that culture of winning in October and November, the Big Ten kind of style of football. Michigan State's trying to find that identity. It used to be that Michigan State, when you played them, as we've learned over the last, 12, 13 years, Nebraska's been in the league. Or if you watched them from afar, Michigan State was always kind of like that Missouri team in the old Big Eight, that you played them in October, you're probably going to beat them, but you're going to get beat up doing it, and you hope you came out of it healthy. Michigan State used to be that way. They're not that way anymore. So that's a problem. And right now, Nebraska's, I think, right now rowing that boat, trying to find a physicality to play in October, November in the Big Ten.
Yeah, again, I think to play Big Ten football, you have to build like Big Ten football, and there is no two position groups that change the hope of a fan base more than the offensive and defensive line in this league. There's a lot of great quarterbacks in this league, and they give you hope because they can make plays. But man, if you're week to week and you know that your OL and DL are going to be solid, you got a fighting chance. Whether you're Northwestern, you're Nebraska, or Ohio State, and then the Ohio States compared to the Northwesterns, add the 5-star quarterback, add the 5-star wide receivers, add a couple. Their O-line, D-line are NFL guys, but it changes your hope. The thing I ask, about now moving forward, because we look at, like Louisville, Miami, games are close. This is the NFL, so the margins of error in the game of college football are so thin that. Does Nebraska win those margins of error through coaching or players? What happens over the next 5 games? Because they're gonna play close games. Maybe all next 5 are going to be close games. 1-score games where they are 2-1, but those margins of error that are so thin. When it's Louisville, Jeff Brom against Mario Cristobal, and Brom wins those close games, Cristobal hasn't been able to. In Nebraska's case, is it the headsets or the helmets for the next 5 that help with those margins that are so thin?
Well, and when you talk about the thin margins, that's just the reality of the middle class of the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Games are going to come down to 5 to 10 plays. And despite the fact Nebraska lost by 3 scores on Friday night, there's still 5 to 10 plays you can circle and say, man, if Nebraska made a play here, this is a competitive football game late. There's a third down where Andrew Marshall gets called for holding. I think there's actually 2 third downs on that long drive.
There was one of Donovan, one that was holding that ended up that was a drive that made it 21-6, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which 14-6 feels a lot different than 21-6. There's when Nebraska is down, I believe it was 14-6 in the third quarter. There was a third down for Nebraska where Dillon gets sacked, and I think he had an open receiver where if you go make the play, pick up a first down, you get moving. Then Isaiah Hunter drop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge play. I mean, it's still, despite the fact that you lost by as much as you did, there's still 5 to 10 plays you circle where you say, man, if Nebraska makes a play here, they can probably at least have a fighting chance down the stretch of this football game. But because you don't, the defense got tired in that third quarter because Minnesota held the ball for what felt like the entire quarter. A couple of third downs there, you can't get off the field. That changes the complexion of the game whenever your defense was as tired as they were. I mean, it's that's the reality of the middle class of the Big Ten. Nebraska's going to have to go out there on Saturday and in those 5 to 10 key plays, make more plays than Northwestern does.
And get off the field on third down. A lot of the discussions about the offense, the defense is, pressure. I mean, Lindsey twice unofficially in the pocket got touched on Friday night, and that can't happen. I mean, it's not like he had a great night, but man, he did give you a glimpse that they may have one of their better quarterbacks they've had in a while, just because he's got a lot of poise. And again, they know what they can do with him, and they don't try and do things they can't. They didn't put him like in stressful situations. And you could say, well, Nebraska didn't force him into stressful situations. They really didn't have him where he had to make a big boy play. They just said be part of the offense. And I think the thing about Nebraska is another part of the defense of tackling and angles and sideline to sideline, and guys on the second level not being there, or guys having bad vision on what hole they're going to get into to stop a run. Like if you look at the touchdown run early in the game, I think it might have been the 14-6 one. Nebraska has 2 linebackers that go to the same hole, and Taylor bounces it outside where a guy was supposed to be. Nebraska's stopped getting off the field on third down. They were one of the best in the country in the last 2 weeks. Third down has been a problem for them. And you got to be able to pull the parking brake on that, because that was one thing you could hang your hat on, is you get off the field on third down and then give your, fairly good field position and go from there. And drives are being extended, whether it be a mobile quarterback or a guy with a big boy arm, but more than likely it's just lining up the football and winning one-on-one battles up front.
We need to change gears in our final few minutes here, because let's face it, Nebraska is a basketball school now. We got 5 minutes or so before we say goodbye. I went down and watched Nebraska play BYU yesterday. And by the way, Justice Rhodey slayed it on the play-by-play. with Jake Salins for our care and you guys. But look, I know BYU was playing around with its rotations a little bit and did not have some of its key players on the floor at the end. And but for an exhibition game, after the hangover on Friday night, that was a pretty good way to get over a hangover. And I do think that could be a pretty fun team to watch. Rink Mast, you see how much they missed him last year. And if he stays healthy, they're going to put Buchton Gel into more of a role player role, I think, which is probably where he's better suited than being an option A or B. Mast was fantastic, and he's going to make a lot of money, a lot more money when he at the next level because he's got such great range. But they were a fun team to watch yesterday.
Yeah.
They held on for an exhibition win that doesn't count, but there were a lot of people at PBA, and it's nice seeing Jamarcus Lawrence back. He had 9 assists. Frager's pretty athletic. Esigian had a terrific game. Sam Hoiberg did Sam Hoiberg things. So it could be a nice basketball season for Fred Hoiberg, whose team is 14th in the preseason Big Ten poll.
Yeah, I will be overreacting to this, which I shouldn't, because as you said, BYU was hiding a lot of things. I mean, they
were.
Yeah.
They had a chance to go win that basketball game, and they weren't going to pull out one of their final plays for other teams to have in the scouting report.
100%.
But man, did Rink Mast do anything besides shoot the 3 ball whenever he was out hurt? That guy's a sharpshooter now, and I'm definitely going to overreact to that. I'm sure that's going to bite me in the ass at some point down the road. But he seems to be your best 3-point shooter at this point in time. His stroke is pure. It was with the hand in his face. It was open. It was pick and pop. I mean, he's going to be a problem for a lot of teams in the Big Ten this year. That's my big overreaction. And I know it's an overreaction, but
something that they have though is a couple years ago when Tominaga was around, he was the guy you looked for to shoot the 3 when they had to have it, and they're going to probably live and die on 3s. They have more than just one guy to look to shoot that shot, because if Esigian has a nice day, and the Sanford, Mast, they've got 3 or 4 guys that can legitimately be a threat from behind the arc, which is where they're going to live. They're going to live out there. I don't think you're going to see Nebraska grinding games out, although Fred adjusted a couple of years ago and turned things up defensively. But I think this is going to be a high-scoring Nebraska basketball team.
Yeah, and I don't think it was 47% from 3. I don't think that's a one game like, oh man, they just shot the ball well. That's who they are. They're going to be shooting north of 40% this year because they have the shooters to go out and do that.
They'll win some conference games via blowout, and then they will get blown out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, I love Rink Mast as a 5, his ability to pass and shoot out there, and it's great to see him back. And they need to keep him healthy. So, like, what are his minutes? I know he's not on a minutes restriction, but it's not like he was playing 35 minutes, 2 years ago. They found a way to pick and choose some spots where he could get a breather. My biggest thing with this roster, and first of all, I love that they played this game yesterday, that BYU was here. And BYU must have a supersonic jet because they're showing the BYU-Utah football game last night, and Debansa is back at kickoff. So they made it out of Lincoln pretty quick. Is my biggest thing with Nebraska, when they play like or high-level competition, especially in the Big Ten, do they have a guard that can get to the rim? Do they have anybody on the wing that can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim? Or is it just going to be, and if not just get to the rim, but can you kick? Can you drive and kick? Because I think they will be able to shoot it well, but they're going to need somebody to facilitate that is not the big Dutchman. So, but it's going to be fun. I mean, they're going to let it fly all season long. And I think Frager will bring a nice energy. They just have to find a rotation that gives you solid minutes on both ends of the floor, because I worry about defense, and then I worry about a little bit of toughness. They don't have that dog in Juwan Gary that's going to keep people off the boards. They haven't established that guy yet, but they'll be a fun team to watch. They're going to put up points, that's for sure.
Yep.
Do we think that the state of Nebraska will be the highest scoring state in college basketball this year with Creighton and Nebraska? Oh, and UNO, excuse me.
Yeah, and Omaha plays that way. Omaha will shoot the 3 more than they've shot it in the past years. Oh, yeah.
If we're going to average out those 3 schools, I throw UNK in there as well. I'm not sure what their basketball program's all about right now.
Well, Doan's solid, and Midland's coming in a couple of weeks, so Yeah, without this is a basketball state.
I'll play this game to
question.
the end of the year. I'll compare it to other states in terms of the average points per game among the schools here. We'll see that.
Chadron.
Nebraska will be up
Right.
there. State of Nebraska will be up there.
Hey, I didn't. Is Nebraska volleyball on BTN Plus again today? Is that right?
I don't know.
And Harper Murray's return home that she sold out Chrysler Arena.
It is on BTN Plus.
Wow.
They got to sell BTN subscriptions somehow.
Wow. I mean, hey, the Nebraska volleyball is making so much money for other schools in concessions and ticket sales. They have one of the largest crowds ever at the Breslin Center. Chrysler Arena is sold out today because Harper Murray is back in town. I mean, I hope Nebraska is getting a little bit of kickback here because they are single-handedly helping out volleyball. They're the biggest brand and the biggest rock show going in women's athletics.
Yep.
But it is pretty cool that when they show up, the building is sold out. I mean, I guess that's what it's like to be the Beatles.
MJ
Seriously,
and the Bulls. MJ and the Bulls.
They are. And then when they play when the Beatles, maybe I don't know how many times the Beatles went back home once they became big and did a home show. Like when Nebraska plays at home, they're the biggest show in town. I mean, it's pretty good right now. And they're rolling. I don't know if you guys maybe you watched the beginning before the football game on Friday night. Man, they aren't messing around. They're not playing the best of the best right now in the Big Ten, unless it's Penn State a couple weeks ago. They're rolling teams. And Purdue last week, I think Purdue is pretty good. They're a top 15 team, but they're rolling teams. I mean, they have no let up whatsoever. And you would think maybe, hey, you would drop a set. So instead of sweeping, you win in 4. No.
They haven't dropped a set in over a month.
The thing I love about
Too
what
much to Kansas City
is she's playing a lot of players. They're not just relying on 6 or 7. And then when things do get tough in the NCAA tournament, which when they get into that do or die match the last couple of years, and there is no tomorrow, they have folded against Texas and against Penn State. And when you're playing 9, 10, 11 players, if somebody's not functioning, you get them out and get somebody in who's got experience. It's what we're not seeing on the football field, if you know what I'm saying. Okay. They're living and dying with one guy and not getting some other people some reps and some snaps that puts a little pressure on those who are on that front line. If you're having an off day or taking a day off, there's somebody else willing to do the work.
Billy D just dropped in a Latif. I know that's what you were doing.
I don't know what you're talking about, but way to read between the lines. But look, she's doing a great job in getting people bought into. I'm going to get my opportunity if somebody else is going to give up theirs. So good on her for that.
Well, competition, I mean, that keeps you on your toes. All right, guys, when we reconvene, and I know we'll do the week of shows and then Saturday, next Sunday, we will be talking about what?
Oh, good God.
That was not the response I was expecting, Elijah. 1 week from today, when we come on the air at 10:30, what will we be talking about?
A Nebraska win over Northwestern, but it was not pretty.
Will we be talking about TJ Latif in some way, shape, or form? Whether it's he gets in the game or whether we think he should get in the game, that's my concern. And Tyler, I think, just agreed with me saying we might be talking about Latif. I wonder that the pocket presence and the mobility of Raiola is a problem, and I don't see that getting better in the course of the season. And I think the offensive line is going to continue to give up pressures and hurries. And if Dylan Raiola doesn't figure out something with pocket presence, or Dana doesn't figure out how he's going to get the ball out quicker, we're going to be talking about Latif next week. Win or loss, we'll be talking about Latif if that pocket presence and mobility continues to be a problem.
I have no idea what we're going to be talking about because I'm waiting to see what will be the response of this team. You know, this is a big week for headsets and helmets to figure it out because this is a rough way to live. And you can't remember last year, got beat at Indiana, played well at Ohio State, still lost, but then lost to UCLA, then lost to USC. I mean, they have to find they have to just remind people that had a bad night at the office or we're in trouble, everybody. Those are the only two routes to go here.
I think one unit I'd like to see, I'd like to talk about, if it goes well for Nebraska, it's because the defensive line has a response game. After Michigan, they had a response game against Michigan State. Now, is Michigan State very good on their offensive line running the football? Absolutely not. If you had a response game, I think you needed a response game after Maryland, but you ended up with a win. That defensive line didn't have enough fire in my eyes. They need a big response game against Northwestern because
I'll stand up for one guy. I think he's now established himself. Keona Davis has had a nice little 3-week run at defensive line. I would like to see him out there a little bit more. But Nebraska's also had some guys disappear. Is this another week where on defense, Caleb Benning is on the field a little bit more? They don't have a lot of options 7 games into the season going into week 8 of here's a guy you haven't seen, so now we're going to play him. But some of those guys that have played and they've already burned the red shirt, do they play more? What does competition look like if a guy is struggling? Do they say, hey, come over here and watch the game with me? Let's see what this guy can do. I think that's another part of this week. Because they have to respond in kind. You can't let Friday night beat you another time. Because as bad as Minnesota was, and that's the worst loss under Rule, the Northwestern game at home is a 7.5-point favorite, might top them all.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nebraska's defense responds, wins a close game. That might be the storyline.
Well, gentlemen, that'll do it for us.
If you see a German Shepherd in South Lincoln, give Schmitty a call.
Hey, so hold on. Let me bring up so we can give what exactly she looks like.
I can also.
So the Schmitties live in the area of 70th and 98th and Yankee Hill in South Lincoln. And so it's a German Shepherd. Her name is Gertie. For all of you that have joined us on the Average Joe Sports Show or here on the weekend edition, you've seen her. But right now, Chris and his family are out in the Heritage Lakes area looking. So again, it's a German Shepherd, very friendly dog. So if you happen to see it, 70th to 98th Yankee Hill area, that's where they think it, she got out last night. Yeah, there you go. There's a picture of Gertie. Got out last night, or actually early this morning, and has been missing ever since. So very friendly dog. So it may be just hanging out in your backyard, and as Bill was saying, or Elijah was saying earlier, gets hungry and finds its way back home. But if you're in that area and you see it, let any of us know, and we'll get in touch with Schmitty.
Yep. So reach out, social media, or however you can get in contact with us if you see Gertie the German Shepherd out there. So thank you, everyone, for your help locating Gertie. If you get out there here in the neighborhood, appreciate it. Thank you for hanging out with us here on a Sunday morning. That'll do it for us with the Average Joes. Gary, enjoy the Chiefs. I'll enjoy my
rare noon game. Very rare that the Chiefs play at noon.
Mm-hmm. Big NFL Sunday coming up. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the Average Joes. We will talk with you next time. Again, 4 to 6. Check us out. Make sure you check out Gary and Matt as well. Weekdays on 16 at 20 at The Zone, and we'll talk with you next time.